The Foreign Minister Marise Payne has responded to that bizarre news conference at the Chinese embassy yesterday where Beijing officials denied abuse of Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province. Journalists were invited to the embassy yesterday in an apparent attempt to downplay concerns through a highly staged presentation, traditional propaganda approach really. Here's my interview earlier in the day with the Foreign Affairs Minister Marise Payne, where she tells me what she made of yesterday's event.
Well, the first thing that I would reinforce, Kieran, is the value of a free media, a free press and free speech, which of course is a democratic value that underpins our system here in Australia. So that opportunity is available to diplomats in Canberra and elsewhere in Australia to avail themselves of. I think that speaks volumes about the principles that do underpin our democratic system. But we have been very clear. And as you say, I have mentioned this with you before, we've been very clear about our deeply held concerns about the human rights situation in Xinjiang, particularly as it relates to forced labour, to re-education, to restrictions on freedom of religion, potential restrictions on reproductive rights, including forced sterilisations, and also very credible reports of the systematic abuse and torture of women. These are matters which we have raised at the highest levels. I made a statement with my New Zealand counterpart, Nanea Mahuta, at the end of last month about these issues, and we work closely with our international counterparts who share our concerns.
The news conference yesterday sought to discredit a number of those reports of repression that you mentioned there from the the internment camps that Chinese call the voluntary vocational training centres. They rejected the claims of sterilisation. They rejected the claims on and reports of destructions of mosques. On all of those cases, though, you remain, and the intelligence suggests, that we should be looking at this with great concern about that province and the treatment of the minority there.
We do continue to hold those concerns, and we have also advocated for and would support appropriate opportunities to visit Xinjiang by the High Commissioner for Human Rights, for example, Michelle Bachelet, and her UN team to avail themselves of an opportunity to see these matters themselves. Now, that would mean an opportunity that was open and free for them to do that, and we have pressed before through Human Rights Council processes and others for that to occur, and I know it is a matter of interest to the Commissioner herself. So those matters, I understand, have been rejected by the authorities in China. If that is the case, then we would encourage the opportunity for such visits.
A number of our allies, the United States, EU and others, have implemented sanctions against individuals in China in relation to the human rights abuses. Will we follow suit?
We don't have the same sorts of sanctions regimes as a number of those countries that you have referred to, Kieran, and we don't have an autonomous human rights autonomous sanctions regime in place in relation to China. But we have been very consistent and very clear in raising our concerns and in using the mechanisms available to us through the United Nations and other bodies to address these matters.
The ambassador said China will not swallow the bitter pill of sanctions. Was that a bit of a warning, a threat to Australia? Don't follow suit in any way?
It may be a statement made by the ambassador. I didn't have the opportunity to watch the entire conference yesterday, but I would say that Australia has always been very clear, not just in relation to this matter, but in relation to matters of human rights more broadly, that where they are of concern to us, we'll make clear our views, no matter where they occur. We have done that in relation to, for example, arbitrary detention, in working with with Canada, with Sweden, with other countries to support the declaration on arbitrary detention that was made recently. We have done that through our role in the Human Rights Council over some time. We've done that in relation to the circumstances and the treatment of the Rohingya in Myanmar over a number of years now. These are not issues from which Australia shies away or resiles. We have a strong and proud record of engaging on human rights matters, and whether countries who are concerned about these issues make statements in relation to Australia's behaviour is a matter for them.
On the European vaccine debate, will you be making further diplomatic efforts to try and gain the 3 million plus vaccines that have not been provided despite the contracts being signed?
We are working very hard with counterparts in Europe, including writing again to my colleague Josep Borrell in relation to these matters. We're also working very closely in regard to the request we have made for the release of 1 million vaccines for Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is clearly at a point of crisis, and Australia is providing a range of support and has begun significant support in terms of the initial vaccine rollout, particularly for frontline health workers. But we acknowledge and recognise that more is needed. In that context, we have indicated to the European Union that we would be grateful to see 1 million of those vaccines made available for Papua New Guinea at this crisis time. I don't know that we're also working through my department and through my office with a number of our NGO colleagues who are very keen to see the vaccines made available as well. They are also lobbying in Europe for the release of those vaccines for that purpose. It is a very difficult time internationally. There is no question of that. We see peaking infections and transmissions, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of deaths around the world every day. We know how difficult it is in so many countries, but we also know that in our immediate region, Papua New Guinea needs our support, and frankly now needs this international support as well, so that we can endeavour to help them in addressing these issues. We've made a strong commitment in our region of over $500 million on these matters, and we encourage the European Union to assist with the release of those vaccines.
I'm almost out of time, but just quickly, should we have done deals with more companies to cover our bases in terms of vaccine supply?
Well, I think obviously the Health Minister and the senior health agency officials have been dealing with these matters. We have made a number of agreements across at least three vaccine companies that I'm aware of. We've worked very hard through the COVAX facility as well to make sure that Australia is a good citizen in this context, and we are supporting the COVAX facility, the advanced marketing commitment under the COVAX facility too. And I think the honouring of those contracts and the opportunities that we have for our own production here have been very, very important steps for this country to take. Okay. Importantly, though, we are working as hard as we can to deliver the vaccine here too.
Foreign Minister and Minister for Women, Marise Payne, I appreciate your time. As always, thanks.
Thank you.